Welcome to Day and Keep, and this is probably going to be a long chapter. I find this one tends to take a while. There's also a lot of doors and chests to grab, and I like to split up when I do this chapter mostly. I like to have one group head up this path and sort of go around here with the thieves to get all of the chests through these doors, while another group heads up here and kind of goes around here this direction. Sometimes my flyers fly over this water and just head down here as well. As you can see, there are a lot of chests to grab. Now, the most annoying thing about this chapter I find is there are 3 bishops here and all of them have sleep staves. And they've got decent range on these too, so this is why I like to bring restore staves. Any physical units with bad resistance, they tend to get hit by sleep more often than not. There's also, I guess I can just scroll through the enemies here just to show some things. Now I could try stealing those sleep staves with Volk, that might not actually be a bad idea. Come back to that guy later. Yeah, there's not a lot of droppable weapons here. Apart from this, okay, yeah, so there is a Swordmaster with a killing edge here, but as long as you have 22 defense or more, he's not a threat. That crit rate is terrifying, but again, if your defense is high enough, it's completely fine. And yeah, we'll cover you later too. So I think that's pretty much... Oh yeah, there are a couple of archers across the... I guess you could call this a moat. It's indoors, so I don't think it's really a moat. The game tends to call it a channel, but... longbow archers here, so they can hit you from over the water. There are actually 3 people with portraits on the map here. There's this guy, Kasatai. He's what I like to consider a mini-boss, and his stats are really bizarre for a general. They're just weird. He reminds me more of Radiant Dawn hard mode generals, having a good balance of every stat, rather than just being lopsided towards strength and defense. He has a Brave Lance, and he does have the Wrath skill, but overall, I don't find him that difficult, and he is not recruitable. He's basically just a mini-boss. Also, I find this guy very hard to take seriously, because just as I was recording the last part, I realized he bears kind of a bizarre resemblance to a former Prime Minister of Australia. But anyway, we also have another general here, Toroniu. This guy has an occult scroll, and he has some fairly decent stats, and this ridiculously, amazingly broken skill. Seriously, that skill is... there are no words to describe how good that skill is in this game. We'll see what we do with him later. And finally, we have Ina herself. Her stats look pretty impressive, but the Demi-Band cuts them down a lot. Without this, though, she'd be even weaker because she wouldn't be transformed all the time. She does still hit pretty hard. She has this weapon, Breath, which it's alright, but it lacks a certain trait. And that certain trait we'll be seeing later, and it's the reason why Ina is not nearly as difficult as a boss as you'd probably think. She does have very good resistance, though. She also has a lot of skills. Renewal, Miracle, which is always irritating against a boss, so she has a 14% chance of surviving a fatal blow. Speedrunners really hate this because they can just not kill a boss due to sheer luck. And Boon, which I highly doubt will ever actually do anything. This is the occult skill for dragons, and it having the same icon as Earth Affinity is not a coincidence. In the Japanese version, its name was Earth Bounty, while Blessing was called Sky Boon. Or Sky Blessing. And that's why its icon looks a little bit like the icon for Heaven Affinity. But anyway, who are we going to bring here? Well, we need to bring our thieves. So, let's see. I might actually not bring Tanith here. Obviously want Rayson. I don't think I'll need Janeth. I want you for the support. Mordecai for smiting is good. Volk and Soth I want because of the chests. And I actually promised that I bring Khalil. So somebody needs to go for me to bring Khalil. And... like I said, I want you for supports with Jill, but I also want you for smiting. Might as well swap over to Khalil. Now, I do have the smite scroll. I could give that to Leth if I really wanted, but I'm actually going to drop her after she gets her A support with Jill. Because there's actually another cat we'll be getting soon who's going to be better. Maybe I should give smite to him. Or smite to Janeth might not be a bad idea, because Janeth can fly. I know I've been calling Janeth a she a few times. Yeah, I do that sometimes. I don't know why, I just think that Janeth looks more feminine than Lucius. Khalil can afford to go in the back. I'm mostly using you for bolting. This is our first time using Volk after he's become an assassin. Not really going to give him lethality, though, because I feel like that's not really going to be all that necessary. And I think these are alright starting positions, so might need to use Rayson to chant for Gatry just to get him into position here. And I'll need to... yeah, Mist needs to stay close because I'll probably need her Restore Staff. But anyway, I've spent way too long doing preparations, let's begin. I still love the new player phase start theme. Still interesting, I find, how there's evidence of those being planned for FE7. And this song is still great. I should mention that even though the dialogue at the start of this chapter, the enemy specifically said, will be receiving no reinforcements from the king, that's kind of a lie. They do get reinforcements during this chapter. They're not very strong reinforcements, but they come out of that spot right behind Rayson. And once again, uselessly gaining skill. Yeah, they come out of here, and I think there are reinforcements from here as well. This song really never gets old. But I have to be careful of this bishop. Annoyingly, you can't toggle attack and staff ranges in this game like you could in the GBA games, so you have to count it out manually. You only have 14 magic though, so that's only 7. Yeah, I suppose Gatry can head a bit forward without getting in range of that. Wait, could I have... oh, I guess I could have healed him for 1 HP. Yeah, D rank and Starve for Soren wouldn't really change much for him. C rank, though. If you can get your sages up to a C rank, I know I've said this before, but I just want to say it again because it's really useful. They could use Physics Starves, and that's amazing, especially in the trial maps. Oh, hey, Volt can still shove Ike, which is pretty fun. I suppose you can shove too. Yeah, like I said, this map tends to take a while. No, that's a waste of a physics staff. Should probably give you another one of those soon, but I think it's okay. And here we see the inside of Day and Keep, which actually looks pretty cool. I like how we got the channel there. There are a pretty good number of unique battle backgrounds in this game. So yeah, we'll be opening that door, which I'm sure has some enemies in it. This is yet another standard indoor map that has a lot of chests and stuff. I've just been thinking, I mean, by just been thinking, I mean it literally hit me just then, but... I find that there isn't that much variety in indoor chapters in Fire Emblem games. They're usually just a castle map with a seize objective and a throne to seize, and doors you can open with chests. I mean, Awakening did have that one indoor escape. Well, actually, technically speaking, it wasn't an escape map. I think it was actually a defeat boss map. But it was kind of an escape map, with those Maya sorcerers on the sides. That was always a pretty interesting chapter to me. Just in terms of other indoor maps in the series that come to mind, that one from Thrakia 776 that has, I don't want to spoil it, but essentially some of your characters are trapped in an arena and you have to rush to rescue them. I always thought that was an interesting concept for a map. Okay, who goes in which direction is the question here. Well, Soren should obviously go in the same direction Ike is, and Ike should be heading in the direction that gets to the boss room faster, so... I suppose Ike and Soren are going this way. Speaking of random things I can talk about, that just reminded me of how someone was, it began, like, this was a forum topic on Serenade's Forest ages ago, just kind of a silly thing, but it began when someone realized there was something on the periodic table called BK, and they were trying to think of other, mostly Tellius related, because I think Tellius was relatively new back then, but other, periodic table elements that you might as well try and get some sword experience on you. That related to Fire Emblem things. And I think there was one called SI, which someone called Soren and Ike. I can't really remember any of the others. But the BK one was pretty funny. Of course, most of the fandom just calls him the Burger King. Some people act like that meme is a Heroes thing, but no, he's always been called that ever since here. It's not actually as relevant in Australia, though, because Burger King got renamed Hungry Jack's here because they wanted to sound more, "G'day, mate, we're totally Australian." Kind of butchered the accent there. This is kind of irrelevant, but a lot of people say how some people are, I don't know, surprised by my accent. It's not typical Australian accent, but then again, very few people actually sound like Australians do in the movies over here. Admittedly, my uncle really does, but he spent a lot of his life, he's been wandering the country for a while. He just kind of goes wherever he wants to. So he spent quite a lot of his life in the outback, so I guess he must have picked it up there. But for the majority of people, it's, most people don't sound like this. But sometimes I like doing an exaggerated, stereotypical Australian accent just for laughs, like I did that for, for Sydney in my Omega Ruby. Actually, no, it was Alpha Sapphire, yeah, but Alpha Sapphire, Sydney of the Elite Four, I thought it was funny. Mainly, like, the main inspiration I get for that accent is from, the third Sly game. There's a chapter that's set in Australia, and some of the accents are so hilarious to anyone who's an actual Australian. There's one mission in particular that requires you to, infiltrate, well, not infiltrate, you basically just barge in and smash everything but a lemonade bar. I always found that one of the funniest moments in the game. Probably for all the wrong reasons, but it's also why I wish I did a blind playthrough of, or at least I recorded Xenoblade Chronicles X blind, because I was laughing so much when Vandom first showed up. That was just amazing. So, yeah, that's part of why I almost want to do a playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles X at some point. It's interesting, I watched a speedrun of that recently. I'm already getting into tangents, but there's not a lot to say about the early part of this chapter. Things get a bit more interesting later on, but for now, not so much. But I learned a lot about that game from watching a speedrun. Like, so many things, like, I didn't actually know that the different ideals in the ideals cloud slightly increase damage of that element. I also didn't know that if there's an elemental orb spinning around an enemy, that actually slightly gives the enemy a slight resistance to that element, which makes sense. It's so that you get punished for spamming the same elements of level 3 special over, well, not level 3, the same element of special over and over again. And yet, that didn't do effectiveness damage because of the Bjork Guard. One of the few times that's actually useful for something. I could try and have Miss fight that guy, but I am not going to because she needs to go with Ike because people are more likely to be getting sleep-starved around that end. You know, sometimes I like to have Jill or any flyer on sleep-starved elimination duty. I might actually do that now. Of course, if she's the one who gets hit by the sleep staff, that renders the entire thing pointless. She might actually have to stay here, though. Her speed is probably lagging behind a little bit if she's not, doubling these guys. And here we see another example of how low ceilings are bad for Jill. At least they don't lower her movement the way that they do in, Okay, yeah, she can reach from here. The way they do in Radiant Dawn, which honestly I actually like. I like the way Radiant Dawn nerf mounted units indoors. Wasn't anywhere near as punishing as the dismounting system from Thracia, while still being a little bit of a detriment for mounted units indoors. Yeah, people have said, it seems like there's evidence for, well, not seems like, some people have read evidence of dismounting returning in Three Houses based on the trailer. It's based on the fact that the mounted units in that game, their armor looks very similar to a certain foot soldier that we see in a later cutscene, so people are like, oh, hey, dismounting is going to come back. And, yeah, there's actually... And that just goes to show how good effectiveness bonuses are in this game. Not, because with a forged weapon, I'm doing the exact same amount of damage. But I was hoping for either Ether or a critical, and I got one. But it's interesting to see just how many people are in favor of that. I know that mounted units tend to be broken in Fire Emblem, I know that, but I still never really liked dismounting. Especially in the games where dismounted knights were all forced to use swords, regardless of their actual weapon type. Because you got situations like in FE3, where only generals could use lances indoors. That was kind of dumb. And both the generals in that game were not great. And then FE5 had, yeah, a whole bunch of dismounted classes that... You know, actually, speaking of which, I think there's evidence dismounting may have been planned to be in this game. Oh, and that's funny, that's a weapon that Volt can use right now. The stiletto is, as this thing says, the most powerful combat knife. It's still not amazing, but this is the best knife, and because there are no weapon ranks, any knife user can use these right off the bat. So once you have access to stilettos, there's no reason to not use stilettos. You can buy them later in the game. And yeah, crit 10. That's the best crit rate you'll be getting out of knives in this game, so... yeah, not going to go for that. I've got to make sure to not equip that. But yeah, in terms of lethality, 10 crit is the best you'll get as a base crit rate. And with maxed skill, that's an extra 15, so only 25 maximum crit against an enemy with 0 luck, that assumes, and most enemies in this game don't have 0 luck. I've already gone into that. Okay, probably time to use my restore staff for the first time. Or not. I usually get more people falling asleep here. But as far as, and here's my Defense Blessed Ike showing, as far as sleep staves go, they're not nearly as annoying in this chapter as they are in some chapters. I'm sure, yeah, there is one chapter at the very least in Radiant Dawn that's pretty frustrating with sleep staves. Titania's falling a little bit behind in speed, but that's probably okay. And I also forgot to talk about the thing that Soph got out of that one chest. The Parity Scroll. Parity is a skill that I didn't expect to talk about until later. I honestly forgot the Parity Scroll was here, and for very good reason. Parity is not a very good skill. It's an interesting concept, but in this game it's let down by one very, very major thing. So, the way Parity works is that it makes the user and the enemy fight purely based on their stats and weapons. It basically cancels every kind of bonus that doesn't have anything to do with raw stats. Although I don't think it cancels Weapon Triangle. It ignores the effects of supports, terrain, affinity. Pretty much everything that is not just raw stats. Again, I'm not sure if it's... Oh, and your axe actually is shining even indoors here. Maybe light's coming off the statues or something. But yeah, it basically ignores... Oh, and it ignores skills too. So, except itself, obviously. So, that's part of the reason why it's not that great, because you can't... You effectively can't have any other skills equipped when you have parity, because they'll all be useless. The thing about parity that I find just makes it not that good, though, is the fact that in this game, if you have parity equipped, you're forced to use parity every time you fight. So, the moment that you equip that skill to someone, that character never benefits from supports, they'll never benefit from terrain, they'll never benefit from skills. One use I have seen recommended for it is on flyers, because they don't get terrain bonuses anyway, and they usually fly away from support bonuses regardless. But even then, it's still... Oh yeah, you have a bow, but Jill has the full guard, she's fine. Yeah, even then though, I still don't really find it all that good of a skill. In Radiant Dawn though, it's got a lot better. There are quite a few skills that improved in Radiant Dawn. Parity is one of them. It works the exact same way it does here, except it works like Gamble, as in you choose whether or not to use it whenever you attack. Which, that simple change turned parity from a really not good skill that hinders more than it helps to an actually very good Nile substitute that you will really, really want to have in the final chapter on people who don't have the Nile skill. So that was actually pretty cool. I like the way they changed it in that game. Nice, exactly enough. I'll be breaking Heart of Fire soon, unfortunately. Even though one of the lyrics of the Heart of Fire song is, "Our bonds will never be broken." I thought of an even better thing to do for the Heart of Fire song, by the way. Though I'll have to find... This is a weird question, but does anyone out there know if there is an instrumental version of Tokyo Mirage Sessions' Fire Emblem the musical song? Because I thought it would be hilarious to sing the Google translated Heart of Fire lyrics to that song. I was thinking for a second about giving a sneak preview, but I don't know if I'm exactly that good at singing. I was actually, so very, very bizarre thing. Because the high school I went to started out as a school for a church choir, choir was actually compulsory for me for the first 2 years of high school, which was really bizarre, and I hated it. Well, I mostly hated it because it was very early in the morning, and I don't like getting up early in the morning. But, yeah, it's, I don't know, my sister voluntarily did choir when she was at school, and she's fairly good at it, but I still, I still have funny stories about that because, she went into, like, this multi-school choir event thing that, for some reason, her entire school was forced to be the soprano backing choir, even though she's an alto, and so... And some of the sample tracks they had to practice on, I'll just restore stuff for you. Some of the sample tracks they had to practice on for the soprano backing were just hilarious. I still joke about it with my sister all the time because it's just the most stupidly comically high voice I've ever heard. But yeah, anyway. It's more like I've often been told that I have a good ear for music, I just don't really think that I can actually sing. Oh hey, we can actually see Khalil fight, nice. Might have to heal her after this though. Oh yeah, I can finally talk about something! So remember when I said when we first saw Ileana, that when she promotes, she becomes a palette swap of someone who's kind of out of character for her to be a palette swap of? Ileana on promotion becomes a Khalil palette swap. And that's even reflected in the art book. There is concept art of Ileana's promotion, and it's exactly the same as Khalil, just palette swap. So they obviously planned that, but it doesn't make any sense. Thankfully in Radiant Dawn, everyone has their own unique promoted model, so... Well, mostly. So that kind of issue generally doesn't happen. Alright, I can actually, chant 4 people now, and it's not safe for our thieves to head forward just yet, so I might as... Actually, no, I might as well chant for the thieves. Have to remember to restore staff. Jill here. But yeah, my kind of lack of ability to sing is, gets in the way of, the fact there's something that I'd really like to record me singing someday. I have, kind of joke lyrics to a certain song from the first Xenoblade Chronicles. Not to spoil anything from that game, but there's a moment in the game that's this massive Wham episode, and let's just say that a certain very, very happy song just happened to start, like, okay, I'd reconstructed Colony 6 to the point where the song Colony 6 Hope, which is a very, very happy and upbeat song, started playing immediately after this very, very dramatic plot point happened. I guess I can say what it is, this will, don't worry, this isn't a spoiler, it's the Mechonis Core event. Anyone who's played Xenoblade Chronicles will know what I'm talking about when I say that, but... So, if you played that game, you'll know what happens at that point, and you'll know how much of a mood whiplash it was to hear Colony 6 Hope start playing right after all those events. And so, I have mock lyrics of the Colony 6 Hope song that are, like, really unfittingly happy lyrics about how, well, I can't say them because they'd be spoilers, but one day I kind of want to record myself singing that because it's just an in-joke that I have. Well, I know, more so an in-joke with myself, really. I'm really tempted to sing the lyrics now, but I can't because they're massive Xenoblade Chronicles 1 spoilers. And there's kind of an equivalent of that in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but it's a side quest. There's a side quest in Torgoth that has a really tragic ending, and the really happy Torgoth village theme starts playing right after it, and that's also a huge mood whiplash. But it's always funny when stuff like that happens with music in games. Sometimes the developers didn't really think when you'd be in certain towns, and the town themes end up being really unfitting. That just reminded me, yeah, I'm going on weird tangents here, but mostly this is just, you know, we're moving forward, fighting enemies, doing stuff, you know. Okay, might have to watch out for Ike around the snipers and the, especially you. Crit 16, that's a 1% crit rate. It's probably okay, please don't let those be famous last words. But I just got reminded of how there's a certain point in, so nice recovering 1 HP, that might actually help you. There's a certain point in Trails of Cold Steel 2 where they reuse, like, the theme for one of the early towns works surprisingly well as a tragedy theme later in the game. It's just interesting how they bring the song back, and it's a town theme when you first hear it, and it works as a theme for that particular town. And then later in the game, they bring that song back and they use it after a major tragedy has occurred, and the song really works in that context. It's interesting. And that missed anyway. Also, forgot to comment on it, but I gained speed, yay. Now the question here is, who is Kasatai going to attack, Jill or Titania? Either way, he's not going to last for very long. You can easily beat the chapter without fighting him, but I don't know. And he went for Titania as I thought he would. And he does get the boss theme, so he is technically considered a boss here. Also, this is one of the few bosses in the entire game who doesn't have special dialogue with Ike, I believe. But, like, again, he's not an actual boss, he's more like a mini-boss, but I'm pretty sure he has no special dialogue with Ike. He does, I think, have special dialogue with, and yeah, that's what I was talking about with the reinforcements earlier. I think he does have special dialogue with someone else, though, but I'll be getting to that later. Killer Axe Warrior. However, I can attack you at range, so don't really need to worry too much about that. And not kill you. I was about to say, I wonder if I can inflict the ultimate humiliation and have Soth kill you, but, I'm pretty sure Soth is going to do no damage. Let's see. Of course. Wait a minute. 14 defense. You only have 5. Even with the stiletto, I don't think you'll be able to do it. I suppose I can show Volt fighting as an assassin. No. Any of you have something I can steal? Yeah, Volt being an assassin doesn't stop him from stealing, by the way, so that's good. I know there is at least one game in the series where promoting to assassin actually stops you from stealing, but unfortunately, Leth is just not being all that useful at this point in the game, which is, as I said back when I first got her, this is about the point where she starts to drop off in usefulness. But the fact that she's able to last for this long on pretty much her base stats alone still makes her very useful. And she's also pretty good for shoving. And there's another plus 2 HP. Yeah, it's usually only Laguz and Manakete who have growth that exceed 100%. Although I think... yeah, I think Ced can with Lewin as his father in FE4. And I know that Carl does in FE6. And he's... well, he only has 1 level up to actually make use of those growths, which is a shame. Kind of thought something like that might happen. Some people have also pointed out that Stefan, his in-battle outfit looks a bit different to his outfit in the, like, in his portrait, but, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Question is, who am I going to chant for here? You know, I feel really bad about having Jill do this, but I guess at this point she's fully resolved to side with the Crimeans, so fight one of your former, well, I don't even know what kind of rank this guy even had in Dayan. I don't think that quote changes if you've beaten Ina already before you beat him, and that's definitely possible. And yeah, he certainly seems to count as a boss for the purposes of experience. I'd like a little bit more speed, Jill. But your strength and defense are alright for this point. Okay, now... Now it's a sage in there. I like the way these rooms look, though, with that, like, that shield with the spears and the flags in the background. And these stairs make me think that reinforcements will come out of them, but they won't, don't worry. I'm pretty sure that there's no reinforcements to come out of these stairs. For some reason, these rooms are reminding me of that unused thing in... Was it FE6 that had the unused watch staff? That was supposed to show you what's under roofs, but it actually doesn't do anything? Then there's that charm staff in FE4. I have no idea what that was even supposed to do. It's an unused item, but I don't think it actually does anything. And I have no idea even what it would have done. Don't know if it would have been like Berserk and made enemies kind of fight for you temporarily, or if it would have been like, Gotta be careful of racing here. That should be fine. Yeah, he could have gone further, but oh well. Khalil's not likely to see much use after this chapter, so I might as well just show her off as much as I can. And, speaking of show off, she's certainly showing her legs there. Of course, Khalil kind of already has a love interest in this game. And you might be able to figure out who that is if you've seen earlier conversations. They've not actually appeared physically yet, though. In fact, they're actually the one and only canon pairing in this game, technically speaking. Or if you can do it with less than a silver lance, I might as well not use the silver lance. That's actually something that I want to talk about here as well. Because there's actually something involving support I want to talk about later in this chapter anyway, so I guess I can say some support tangents now. One thing about this game that I find interesting is that there aren't really any true romantic supports in this one. I mean, people heavily debate Ike Soren, but it's technically not romantic, at least not here. Like, even some of the supports between characters who can get married in Radiant Dawn aren't all that romantic in this game. And I feel like they did it to, you know, leave the endings open for Radiant Dawn, because this game is, well... They obviously had the sequel already planned when they made this game. I'll talk about reasons why I think this later on. I want Ike to go further, but yeah, I need to be careful of these two. He does have 21 defense, though. How much attack do you have? Wow! 17! 17! Because promoted enemies in this... Well, because every enemy in this game... Oh, right. I'm surprised you didn't go for Ike, actually. I'm surprised you went for the person who's standing right next to someone with a restore staff, too, but I guess you can't see that through the... Wait a minute. If you can't see through that wall, how can you even target me with the staff anyway? Anyway. But, yeah. One other reason why I feel like there aren't really romantic support in this game is that from Radiant Dawn, I think it's implied that every single support in Path of Radiance was canon. Because something that I will go into when I get to Radiant Dawn, but there's actually so many support conversations that get referenced in the second game. Some of them that I never imagined would be relevant at all. For example, in one of my earlier playthroughs, I supported Brom and Zehawk because I was thinking, oh, you know, what the heck, I'm using both of them, I might as well get their supports. And I just, you know, thought they were just another support and, you know, no real big deal. And Brom and Zehawk supports pretty much, they're mostly a comedy support. They mainly consist of Brom trying, strength 15. Can I steal that? I might be able to, actually. Aha! Free Steel Lance. Couldn't do that with Soth, but I can do that with Volk. But, as I was saying... And a crit there. as I was saying, I did Brom and Zehawk supports, and the supports mostly consist of Brom trying to marry Zehawk off to one of his daughters. So, you know, it's just standard comedy support, but let's just say that it might have repercussions for Radiant Dawn. There's also another support that I can't quite talk about yet, because I will be able to talk about it later on in this map, but not yet. That turns out to also get referenced in Radiant Dawn. And there's also, like, Ranulf has, I mean, it's not really a spoiler to say that Ranulf becomes recruitable eventually, because of course he would be, but Ranulf has a support that ends up name-dropping a couple of characters who end up recruitable in Radiant Dawn, so there's a lot of really interesting sequel nods in the support conversations in this game, and it does lead me to believe that every support in this game is canon. So you might want to try reading some of them. I mean, only a few of them get referenced specifically, but I like to think that every support in Path of Radiance was canon to Radiant Dawn. Oh, actually, I could just throw Nephany or Sorin in that room if I open it with Volk. Not shove, door. Oh, right, and that's the unoccupied room. So I didn't even need to anyway. In fact, let's just quickly get started on this one. Oh, that's an 80 HP door. That's one strong door. Funny thing is, I think I remember Adept can trigger against doors. Let's see if we get it here. Yes, we did! That's the door gone, isn't it? Yeah, it is. That's pretty interesting. I've seen Ether activate against the door too, by the way. Alright, Swordmaster, that's fine. Nephany's in no danger even if she gets crit. A lot of enemies with Lagoon Slayers here. I mean, I feel like it makes sense given that we're in Dayan and, you know, that's kind of what they do. But, still kind of interesting. But yeah, most skills can activate against doors, which is funny. I had this weird glitch in one of the trial maps when I played this game that involved Ether activating against a door, and I just repeated the Ether animation about 9 times or something like that. It was bizarre. I don't know what caused it, but I think it's a glitch that other people have encountered. Must have something to do with the fact that doors technically have 0 defense, so halving 0 must cause the game to freak out a little bit. I don't know. Don't think anyone here especially... I mean, I wanted to heal Titania, but I can also do this. Hey, Miss actually being decent in combat, but it's against a mage. She is pretty useful as a mage killer. Oh yeah, and something that I think I read in a comment section a while back, also Mist levels up in combat rather than with the staff, is that apparently Mist is not weak to anti-cavalry weapons. Which some people have justified by saying it's not a horse she's riding, it's a pony. But I think more that just the developers forgot to, third time's the charm, I guess. Gatry has been targeted by all 3 sleep bishops, I just realized, and only one of them succeeded. But yeah, I think it's more just because the developers forgot to code in the horse weakness for Valkyries, because Mist is the only Valkyrie in the game, and actually, no, she isn't! No, there is actually an NPC Valkyrie that shows up in Chapter 24, I forgot about that. I always found that interesting for being the only Valkyrie in the game besides Mist. You don't see enemy Valkyries that often in Fire Emblem games, I think there's a few in Sacred Stones as enemies, but you don't really see them, apart from bosses. There's a couple of Valkyrie bosses out there, but anyway. Yeah, also, speaking of classes you don't often see as enemies, Assassins are another big one for very obvious reasons. They know it wouldn't be fair to have potentially the random chance of your characters being instantly killed in a Fire Emblem game. There's a reason why most assassin bosses in the series either don't have lethality or are equipped with weapons that stop lethality from working, like the assassin boss in FE7. Because it can't work with magic weapons in that game, and thus, every time you fight him, he always has a magic weapon. But they've often had trouble coding the horse weaknesses for Valkyries, because I think in the Japanese version of Sacred Stones, Ephraim's Regenleif didn't have effectiveness bonus against... Oh no, it wasn't Valkyries, it was Mage Knights. the Rapier and Regenleif weren't effective against Mage Knights for some reason. They fixed that in the English version. They also, for some reason, fixed the... Like, Gorgon had the Flyer movement type in that game. In the Japanese version. Which I don't think really affected much, because it's not like it had that much movement or anything, but... And I don't think there were many... Like, in the only... Like, the few maps where you fight Gorgons in Sacred Stones, there's not much terrain that requires a Flyer to cross. All the lava in the peaks is... Forgotten the exact name of that location. Also nice level up there. But all the lava there is impassable even to Flyers. Which I guess I can chalk up to, like, heat currents or something like that. Speaking of which, I recently had an idea for a Fire Emblem map gimmick. I guess Birthright Chapter 24 did kind of do this, but not to the extent that I sort of want. So, it was inspired by I recently watched an episode of a certain cartoon that involved a location that had a magical aura that prevented flying within that location. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have a Fire Emblem chapter that worked that way? Because Flyers are usually broken in most Fire Emblem games, so it would be kind of funny to have a chapter that says, oh, by the way, there's a magical aura that prevents flying here, good luck. And all of your Flyers were, like, they wouldn't, like, be able to cross terrain, and they'd be reduced to on-foot movement, and, they'd probably lose their bow weakness as well. Just thought that'd be kind of interesting as a map gimmick. Again, Birthright Chapter 24 kind of did that. It had those whirlwinds that slow down Flyers, but I'm talking like a map where Flyers can still be used, they just can't fly. It would also mean you'd have to modify everyone's animations too, so that might be a little bit too much work. Please speed. Well, now I guess Ike's speed curse may have been transferred to Jill. Which is a shame, because I really, really like to give her speed transfer bonuses in Radiant Dawn, because she has a... Like, she's amazing in that game, but she does suffer from a bit of a bad start. And I love it when I'm able to just get someone in a good position where I'm able to do this. So I don't know, I'm sorry I went on a few tangents in this chapter. It's not like there's all that much that happens, but I don't know, I'm actually kind of enjoying this. This is, well, I mean, the entire game from this point on is pretty chill, honestly. I was about to call it a chill chapter, and I just realized something. Two of the worst skills in the game are found in this chapter. Corrosion is generally considered one of the flat-out worst skills in the entire game, if not the worst. So, I forget exactly how, like, what its percent chance is in this game. It reduces the enemy weapon durability, but it reduces it by such a low amount that it's completely insignificant. And you're just, most of the time, you will not be breaking weapons with this skill at all. And its activation rate in this game is really, really low as well. So, in general, it's just really terrible. Like, I mean, I guess it could break Siege Tomes, maybe, but it's pretty easy to kill Siege Tome users now. There is a reason why I'm having Ike head down this way, because eventually, I think it's proximity triggered, but eventually the enemies in the throne room start moving. And I want them to start moving towards Ike, not towards Jill. So that's why I want him to go a little bit further. And that's exactly what I didn't want to happen. Yeah, Jill was closer. I probably should have seen that coming, that was dumb. Now, if I move Jill away, I hope they're going to be going around the other side. Because there's a reason why I want them to be heading towards Ike, and you can probably already tell. We have someone with a unique portrait who isn't a boss. And we don't really have anyone obvious to recruit them, so naturally it falls onto Ike, because when in doubt, talk with your main lord, such as the rule of Fire Emblem. Okay, Thoron, I was mentioning that in the previous part, it's alright. Only 5 crit, really? Thoron usually has more crit than that. That's kind of unfortunate, but I don't know. I might need to send some people backward to fight these guys, if only for the experience. Oh, Nephine's cap speed already. I wish her speed cap was higher. It could actually go higher than 26. She could afford to have a better speed cap and a lower defense cap, because seriously, her defense cap is massively overkill. It's like, what, it's 28, I think? there's no way she's getting to 28 defense. I mean, at least it's not as weird as Paladins in Shadow Dragon having a 30 defense cap, which, if any of them could naturally reach it, it would make Generals totally worthless, but none of the Paladins in that game really can. The Avatar in New Mystery certainly is capable of doing that, though. Of course, none of that matters, because in the multiplayer arena, everyone just hacks all their stats, and so... 21. You take no damage. Yeah, Ike takes no damage, so don't even need to worry about that at all. Although Gatry is falling a little bit behind, I should probably let all of them come to him. I really hope these ones go around. But anyway... I was saying something before, wasn't I? It was about... Anyway. Maybe Titania goes back. She might want to fight those enemies back there. I haven't really been using her all that much lately, which some people are kind of glad about, but I don't know. I think Titania is very good, and I don't really mind using her all that much in this game. It's not like Seth in Epic. And speaking of which, that just led me to think about another tangent. So this was just another thing that I've been thinking about. It's mostly because I've been thinking of kind of writing a semi-hypothetical Fire Emblem fan game, but I mean, it'd be a crossover-ish thing that a lot of people wouldn't be into, and I fully understand that, so yeah, but the ideas and good, you did what I was hoping you would do. The ideas, I guess, could be kind of interesting. So one idea that I had is, you know how most Jagans in the series are actually a lot better than the developers intended, and soloing the game with them is actually more efficient than using Jagans how you're meant to, which is using them to help your low-level characters train? I thought it would be interesting if there was a Jagan or an Oife who was actually fully... Well, I thought it would just be kind of almost meta-humor. If there was... The idea is to have a Jagan or an Oife who's actually kind of aware of how broken Jagans usually are, and because of that, instead of being a loyal, honorable knight like the archetype usually is, they're actually an arrogant glory hog and a complete asshole. I just feel like that'd be interesting, because just, I don't know, a lot of Jagans and Oifes have very similar personalities, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to see one who's kind of like Shinnen almost. Who's like, yeah, I'm fully aware that I'm the best person in this army, and what are you going to do about it? But I feel like they'd also probably be like Orson and would betray you eventually. Because, you know, if they were that unlikable, you wouldn't really see a lot of people wanting to use them for story reasons, so, you know, would make sense to have them as an enemy. Yeah, I guess, like, thinking about it, the reason why they made it so you have to fight Shinnen is because they probably were fully aware that most players would want to beat him up, but his recruitment is still very, very strange and a massive guide, dang it. Not as bad as Xavier. Well, I mean, okay, admittedly, Xavier is not that much of a guide, dang it, because, or Xavier, I still, it's pronounced differently in different media, and I still really don't know what it's supposed to be. I usually say Xavier, but and I said that for the X-Men character as well until I saw the movies where they very clearly said Charles Xavier, which always sounds a bit weird to me, but that's kind of like how I pronounce the Pokemon Xatu as Xatu. I used to call it that. But that guy from FE5, he is definitely something. And I guess that does play into this chapter a bit, because we're about to meet... Yeah, it is definitely an archetype, the Lorenz archetype. A general with the enemy country who's pretty honorable. They're kind of like the closest thing to a recruitable example of Camus. They're usually a pretty honorable character. They usually have a pretty high rank within the enemy army, and they're almost always of the general class, and they're usually quite difficult to recruit. Xavier just took that up to 11. But Douglas was also pretty annoying. Douglas is the one from FE6 who you have to keep alive for... I can theoretically start fighting Ina now if I wanted to, but no, let's hold off for now. Douglas was the one who you had to keep alive for an entire chapter. I mean, it wasn't too hard to just lead him around in circles the whole map, but it was still kind of annoying. Hannibal was pretty bad too. Then there's Wallace, and I mean, now that I think about it, FE7 doesn't really have an example of that, because Wallace isn't an enemy when you get him back. But Wallace is funny, because you can potentially not get him back at all if you take the right route. And seeing as in story, he's meant to have no sense of direction, the joke is that his sense of direction was so bad that he never found you at all. Which is kind of interesting. But yeah, Hannibal was... My first playthrough, I screwed up recruiting Hannibal so badly. Because you have to conquer a castle that's not the closest castle, and specifically avoid conquering his castle, because conquering a castle counts as killing all of the units that are under that castle. So that'll make Hannibal disappear from the map if you do that. So you have to avoid conquering that castle, run past Hannibal, and he has like 5-star leadership, doesn't he? So his entire army has those absurdly high hit rates against you. You have to stall him, run to the other castle, which then recruits Corporal, or Corpier, or whatever his officially localized name is. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. The guy who makes Sylvia and Claude totally, like... Just look at that guy and try and tell me Claude and Sylvia isn't canon. Because he just looks like a young version of Claude. And no, I still subscribe to the theory that Claude and Sylvia are not siblings. They do have the same holy blood, but, you know... Legendary figures obviously would have multiple ancestors. I still refuse to believe that... I know FE4 is the game of incest, but... And I know they have a conversation where Claude mentions that he used to have a sister who disappeared a long time ago and would probably be about Sylvia's age if she was alive now, and would probably look a lot like Sylvia, but I still refuse to believe it because, yeah. Like, I'm usually all for people shipping what they want to ship, but I always draw the line at incest pairings. Anyway, though, let's stop this conversation before I get very disturbed. Anyway, you have to get him, and then you have to take him back to talk to Hannibal, and then Hannibal joins. I think Hannibal's one of the only people in that game who naturally has great shields as well. I don't think Arden could ever get that, or could he? I forget if it was a class skill for generals or not. Poor Arden. Even the game, like, even Heroes is fully aware of how little people used him. If there is an FE4 remake, I really hope that they make Arden better, somehow. Yeah, you are out of sleep. Good. I was wondering for a moment. So... I'm gonna clear up the normal enemies before I... Actually, maybe I should leave one of them for... I mean, let's just get this out of the way. You all know what's coming. But here, the case of when in doubt, talk with the main lord is actually justified. Toroniu knew Ike's father. I don't know if they actually explain how they knew each other here, but Toroniu used to be one of the 4 riders. There was a previous group of 4 riders that Grail and Toroniu were both part of. I feel like Toroniu knows full well who that is. You know, I wonder if Toroniu was at all familiar with who the Black Knight actually was. Because, yeah, they were trained by Grail. Anyway, this is kind of a weird line coming up. Toroniu comes across as kinda sexist here. Admittedly, he's accidentally right, because Miss doesn't use, Gawain's style, but still, it's... I don't know. She could probably learn it if she wanted to. Yeah, they all served the previous king. That's a weird way to put it, Ike, but, you know, if he doesn't like the king, why not join us? No, they'll definitely accept. I mean, we have Jill, and we have a few more people from Dayan. I still can't explain who else in the army is from Dayan yet, because it hasn't been revealed. But there are 2 others from Dayan here who... one of them is actually deployed in this chapter. So, with that, we recruit Taroniu. I don't think Taroniu is as good of a pre-promote as Khalil is, but he's okay. For a level 14 general, his base strength and defense are pretty low, but his base speed is not bad by general standards, as is his resistance. In fact, his resistance is pretty good for a general, so he can at least tank magic reasonably well. Making things even worse for Taroniu stat-wise is that he starts at a very high level, and his growths aren't really enough to make up for it. So in the end, both Brom and Gaethje will average a lot better than he does. However, Taroniu does have a few assets. Firstly, his starting weapon ranks are amazing, and he comes with great equipment too. Secondly, he comes with one of the best skills in the game, Resolve. I've been waiting to talk about this skill. Resolve multiplies the user's strength, skill, and speed by 1.5 when they're below half HP. This is a ridiculous boost to your offense, especially combined with Vantage or Wrath. Something to note is that Resolve takes effect the moment you reach half HP, even if that's mid-battle. For example, say the combat forecast doesn't say you're going to double an enemy. You attack them, they hit you and put you below half HP and trigger Resolve. You might actually double them now, because Resolve's speed multiplier will take effect mid-battle. Similarly, you'll be hitting harder because the strength multiplier is now taking effect. Resolve's probably a big reason why this game doesn't show the combat forecast during battle, because the amount of damage you'll be doing will change if this activates. The main thing that prevents Resolve from being totally game-breaking is you don't get the scroll for it until almost the end of the game. So Taroniu having it earlier might actually be a big reason to use him. The skill is just that good. Overall though, I find Taroniu pretty average. He's a decent filler unit. But as far as pre-promotes go, I like Tanith and Khalil a lot better. And he comes with some great items and an occult scroll. I might as well just show him fighting something, even though I really don't want to waste the use of the spear. Actually, nah, he can't one-round that guy. I actually used Taroniu in my first playthrough, because I don't think I was using Gaethje then. I think it is the same style of armor, but just the palette swap makes Taroniu look a little bit different than some of the other generals in this game. Yeah, he's not all that amazing. Most members of the Lorenz archetype aren't that great, but just trying to think. I mean, Xavier's actually pretty decent. Hannibal's actually not that bad, if I remember right. And Douglas is arguably better than Bors and Bath, but then again, who isn't? Apart from Gwendolyn. Who, I don't know. I still like using the 3 of them back in, Okay, let's see if I can do... I can't shove you because you're right in the corner. But I can use Raisin, so that's fine. Can only get 3 people chanted for there, but... And I don't want to do that with Nephany because I want Soren to get that kill. And I might as well put Mist here. I could let Mist get the kill just to prove to Taroniu that she actually is good at using... well, relatively speaking. I mean, Raisin's leveled up twice in this chapter. You don't often see Raisin hit level 20 in one playthrough unless you use bonus experience, but there's not really much point in doing that because it's not like Radiant Dawn where he learns more chance the higher his level is. There's not really that much benefit to leveling up Raisin other than him becoming a pretty good magic tank. And an alright dodge tank, but if he gets hit once, it's pretty much over. It's still really silly just how, this is kind of another tangent, but how Merlinus becomes a ridiculously good dodge tank in a wagon when he gets promoted. That was always pretty fun to do. So yeah, I need to remember, I need to use someone with very good defense to lure that guy, because no one else wants to take a critical from him. And now that we've got Tyronyu, I can explain that thing that I was saying before about support. So, Tyronyu has a support with someone that we haven't met yet, and this support is also canon in Radiant Dawn, because they talk about, well, this other character talks about, I should probably talk about it when that character joins, because it's a bit of a spoiler here, but this other character talks about, like, having their own tavern, and that tavern is actually the subject of several base conversations. Well, several base conversations in Radiant Dawn take place in that tavern. So, he actually did manage to build it. Don't know if Tyronyu was canonically involved in that or not. And yeah, they didn't actually mention it in that conversation, but Tyronyu was formerly one of the 4 riders. The previous group was called the 4 Great Riders, or the 4 Steadfast Riders. I think it's inconsistent what they call it. But the previous group of 4 riders is also kind of funny because it contains a member who is talked about a little bit, but never physically appears on screen. Said member has a daughter who does not live up to his legacy in any way, shape, or form. Then again, we don't actually see him, so I've got no idea what his legacy even is. For all we know, he was just as bad as she is. But that'll all make sense when we get to Radiant Dawn. But yeah, another thing I can talk about with Tyronyu and support. So Tyronyu supports Rolf, and their support has a pretty major mistranslation in it. In it, Rolf says that, let me see if I'm getting this right. That his mother died and his father abandoned him. It's actually the other way around. And that is made absolutely sure in Radiant Dawn. We know in Radiant Dawn that it is canon that the mother was the one who left and the father died. And even, like, conversations with Oscar and Boyd say that in this game, too. So, a bit weird they'd screw that up, but I can understand why they'd mistranslate that, because it's like, referring to those 2 names and saying one died and the other abandoned, it's pretty easy to get them mixed up. I mean, I've seen quite a few mistranslations that work like that. In fact, just to give you an idea of how long this chapter's gone on for, I think this is the first time we've seen Rayson go from human form to Heron form and then back again in the one chapter. Yeah, this is a pretty long one. Yep, I've already been recording for slightly over an hour. But I guess I'm okay with that. This chapter still, I don't think it's anywhere near as long as a later chapter. That's gonna be, yeah, that chapter. That chapter is the, every Fire Emblem game has to have the chapter that I like to call the big battle. As in the chapter where there's a ton, like a huge number of enemies all over the map, and it's just a really big open field with just tons of enemies everywhere. Otherwise known as Maniac Mode in this game. All the time. Yeah. We're about to get some dialogue, actually, because the moment that Ike enters the throne room and realizes Ashnard's not there, the game actually does have dialogue for that. Please don't critical. Good. That might have actually been bad, a few criticals. And yes, high strength stat. I'll probably be using Tyronyu's Occult Scroll on Gatry after this chapter. Just because. And as for Provoke, I said before that sometimes I like to give Provoke to Gatry. Provoke on Ike is also generally considered very good. Especially if he has, yeah, you can actually do Wrath Resolve Provoke, or Wrath Adept Provoke, or Ether Provoke, all of which are just pretty good combinations. Of course, Provoke's a lot better on Ike later in the game than it is now, because Ike gets a pretty big upgrade, but it's not until almost the very end. And that's how to make this Sword Mask not a threat at all. A crit rate above 50 doesn't mean anything at all when you don't do any damage in the first place. 3 times 0 is still 0. And we have in these chests, Master Seal, which I have no idea who I'm going to use that on. In fact, I might have to bonus experience Marsha a bit and use it on her because, I'm going to be kind of careful here, because I don't want Soren to get hit by one of those. I guess if Soren gets attacked by one gent... that's a killer lance. Nope, don't want to risk a critical. But... oh, okay, yeah, so you can see I'm doubling with Elwind and not Elthunder because Soren's strength is terrible. There is, you know that Three Brothers base conversation? There's an equivalent towards the very end of the game that requires Marsha to be promoted. So, just for the sake of showing all the base conversations, I might as well use the Master Seal on Marsha. Gaining 1 point of speed or strength could have helped here. And that should go to Stefan, but for now, send it to the convoy. Gatry really needs healing. I think Miss can heal you and then run. If she can't, I will need to either kill that general or block Gatry. Block with Gatry, I meant. Obviously, I want to block Gatry. I have plenty of fresh javelins, so using this here is fine. I also have Tanner's short spear, and... actually 2 spears now, because Toronio has one of them. And we're already halfway through our promoted levels on a lot of characters, which is pretty good. Definitely making progress, as Emma from Trails of Cold Steel would say. Don't like the idea of Ike getting hit by the Killer Lance, though, but I might be able to take you out this turn. So, once Ike enters this room, we have a special conversation. Also, is Ina going to spend this entire conversation facing backward because I tried to bolting her earlier? If so, that's hilarious. She's supposed to be facing forward here. I've been waiting for you with my back turned for some reason. I had the strangest feeling a bolt of lightning was going to hit me a few turns ago, so I turned around. So yeah, here's the dramatic irony kicking in. The player already knew Ashnard wasn't here, but Ike didn't. We don't actually know what Ina's own interest is just yet. Yeah, those reasons. It's always weird when battle cries get into space in the dialogue. It's also always kind of weird to see what people, like what localizers translate battle cries as. Anyway... can Soren get in there? Actually, wait, Soren doesn't really need much in the way of experience because I'm going to be having him fight the boss. Okay, I will need to shove you. Don't really want to use this, but might as well go for it. I don't want Soren to get hit by the Killer Lance at all. And I crit anyway. Ironically, you are getting criticals. Just realized, just don't really want to think about it in too much detail, but getting killed by fire magic while wearing heavy armor is probably a really, really bad way to go. Yeah, you can still bolting from there, so I will be showing that eventually. Ike has special dialogue with Ina, though, so I'll probably want to have Ina do it. Also, I think some people I think even Rolf or Mist has special dialogue with Ina. There's quite a bit of special dialogue with her. So, the question is, with Aether, well, Ike isn't actually even doubling, but that's mostly because Ike's doing pretty badly here. I guess I can do this first. So Ina doesn't really hit all that hard if your defense is decent enough. But that's not the real reason why she's a bit of an anticlimax of a boss. Also, finally new boss theme. That's all we'll get for now. Also, Ina is shorter than average for a dragon. And this boss theme, I don't know, like, it's decent, but I like a lot of the other powerful foe themes in the series better. It's definitely not my favorite powerful foe theme in the series. Sacred Stones' one is amazing. The one from Awakening is great too. The ones for the Hoshiden and Norian siblings are also great. This one is just, it's not a bad song, it's just I like other powerful foe themes better. But speaking of Ina and music, something interesting is that the game's data suggests that Ina was originally planned to have her own unique battle theme. Also, this data implies that Ina was originally planned to be one of the 4 riders. Because the characters who are listed as having, like there's battle music in the game's data, not actually music themselves. Also, this is going to be fun on Stefan eventually, but names of unused songs. So, like, no actual music data remains, but there's names in the game's data hinting at battle themes for Ina, Patrine, the Black Knight, and, well, the Black Knight already has one, and the other member of the 4 riders that we haven't met yet. Which implies that one of the 4 riders, Bryce, who's been mentioned in the story before, was not originally planned to be one of the 4 riders, and that Ina was actually going to be one of the 4 riders, which would have been interesting. And yeah, they would have got, all of the individual 4 riders would have got their own battle theme, instead of just the Black Knight having his own one. By the way, do not look up what the Black Knight's battle theme is called in the game's data. It's referred to as BGM BTL, the Black Knight's identity's real name. So don't look that up if you don't want spoilers. But anyway, now I can finally show this. So Ina, she is a dragon. She is supposed to be very scary, but there's one tiny little detail that makes her not really all the story builds her up to be. So dragons don't have 1 to 2 range in this game. Yeah. That pretty much sums it up. You can just wail on her with thunder magic, and there's nothing she can do. She won't be able to hurt you at all. It's really sad. And I'm going to do this just because. Oh, hey, that actually cancels Miracle, so that would be pretty useful to do for the final blow. I wonder if... No, I don't think Khalil's using the speedrun for this. She probably just wouldn't be strong enough. She is used in speedrun strats for the next chapter, though. But yeah, Niall ignoring Miracle here is actually interesting. But it's time to finish this. Does Soren get special dialogue? I feel like he should. No, he doesn't. That's weird. I actually feel like he should get special dialogue here. And there goes Ina. And she says nothing. So that was not exactly that challenging of a dragon boss. Yeah. That's kind of sad, but that's what happens when you don't have 1 to 2 range on breath. Which is true of this game. Not true of Radiant Dawn, and believe me, dragons are a heck of a lot more annoying in Radiant Dawn, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And I had to spend an extra turn just because I was concerned about getting Ike a special boss conversation, but I think we've done everything we can. I could have missed Physic Khalil. And Soren could probably try and staff someone. Might as well heal Ike. Yes, I thought that would happen soon. But, again, it doesn't really mean all that much, because it only means I can use Men Staves. Which have much less uses than regular heal staves, and Soren already heals a lot of HP with heal staves. But yeah, in the Japanese version, heal staves had 10 less uses. You know what, I might as well just do this to get experience for racing. This chapter's already gone on for a long time, you probably... Yeah. You can probably afford to wait a little bit longer, and I think that is... Or I could have chanted for Mist and had Mist heal Titania, but no, it's fine. Let's just end this. Wait a minute, isn't leaving the battlefield like that technically the same as surrendering? Oh no, more dramatic irony. And the reveal finally comes. I feel like Soren should have told Ike of his suspicions earlier than this, though. Soren had this figured out several chapters ago. It's weird that he never said anything to Ike about it. Meanwhile, in the very happy-looking Crimea Castle, Ashnard's terrifying theme music is playing. I like the contrast here. At this point, Ashnard's taken over Crimea Castle, so instead of the obviously evil-looking castle that's the main final boss's stronghold, it's actually the obviously good-looking castle, which is... it's an interesting twist. Getting a bit more insight into Ashnard's personality here. Well, did you really expect anything more when dragons don't have 1-2 range in this game? Yes, that mysterious mission that he had that he didn't say anything about. Ashnard thinks he can handle someone even under the medallion's influence. He must be pretty strong. Yeah, there was a reason why the medallion only started glowing after the war began. That's the first mention of this event, known as the Great Flood. That'll be expanded upon a lot more later. And the fact that it's blue light is actually referenced in this game's Japanese title. It's called The Trail of Blue Flames. And, yep, I'm sure many people saw this coming. Leron's medallion is the fire emblem of this universe. I think it's definitely a better mentioning of the name Fire Emblem than how it was done in Sacred Stones, where the last Sacred Stone is referred to as the Fire Emblem at the end of the game, just because we had to have a Fire Emblem in here somewhere. It is kind of interesting to see Petrine completely at a loss for words here. She is usually the confident one, but when she's dealing with the king directly, suddenly not so much. So that was the mission. Ashnar did say he wanted one of the herons, and one of them is with our army, so the chances of actually getting past us are pretty minimal. Also that, apparently. And there is the Hawk King as well. Also the fact that Nasala probably doesn't want anyone going after Leanne either. Yeah, anyone who's played Heroes knows that. They know that all too well. Huh. Yeah, the Black Knight's definitely too useful to betray right now. This is kind of a weird line, but... Of course you don't. And even though we took 15 turns there, we still made the turn limit for max bonus experience because they expect you to take a while in that chapter. So, that is chapter 21 done. Yeah, it was a pretty long one, I apologize for that, but I actually think it's a pretty good chapter overall, even though I was saying it's a little generic. It's a pretty good generic indoor chapter. Next time, we have by far the most bizarre chapter in the entire game. I'm looking forward to talking about this one.